and welcome to the Comicspiracy, episode 554 for the week of August 7th, 2022. My name is Ryan Higgins, who's here this week with me.
Brock Sager.
Kevin.
And Charlie.
And...
Lane.
Hey, Lane's here as well. Hello, Lane. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I'm Charlie, back.
Hello, Charlie.
Yes.
After we badmouthed you last podcast for never being on the podcast anymore, Thank you for coming back on, pressuring you.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I did not listen to the last podcast, so I did not hear you bad-mouthing me.
If it makes you feel any better, Charlie, it wasn't actually bad-mouthing. It was more expressing missing you.
I say badmouthing.
Well, that's because you're negative.
Hey, speaking of
Bad-mouthing something.
negative, negative. I guess negative and positive. We got like two things to talk about this week. Only two. Boy, are they big topics. We're gonna spend the first whatever of this podcast talking about the HBO Max Batgirl thing and everything. That's gonna be the whole front of this podcast. The back half of Sandman, episode 1. We're doing one a week. Sorry, everyone that binged it in the first 9 hours of the show being up. Brock, I'm disappointed that you didn't just marathon straight through.
I was on vacation over the weekend.
Like I said, I'm disappointed. I expected
to was like I could have if I didn't go out drinking, but I went out and had some fun.
I expected a text from you Friday morning that said just finished.
Oh,
when
hell
I woke
no.
up.
No. I can binge on my own terms. I don't need to binge it like all at once. I stayed up till midnight, and the thing was loading at 10%, like for 10 minutes, because everybody was trying to access it.
I figured Brock was going to rewatch episode 4 like 10 times before he got to 5.
Oh yeah, no. We can't get there. We're skipping ahead, Lane.
Yes.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that to the once a week folk.
Me and Kevin are just taking it slow, taking it easy, taking
Old
it all
Man
in,
Express
absorbing
right
it. Episode 1, that's it. We'll hit that at the end of the podcast. But we're going to talk about HBO Max and the week that was. News still hitting now. This is going to be a very kind of free-form conversation. We'll kind of go somewhat through a timeline here. I've got a million articles open here, so part of me is I kind of jump back and forth between all these things. So this was on. Was it Wednesday? Was it Tuesday or Wednesday?
I don't know, whenever they did their quarter call or whatever it was.
Well, no, yeah, that was after. That was after. So it was mid last week. Articles started going up that two movies that are coming up from Warner Brothers Discovery, the new merged company of Warner Brothers, parent company of DC Comics, and Discovery, the company that Warner Brothers sort of merged into, have been canceled. One of them was Scoob, the 3D animated kids Scooby-Doo movie that was going directly to HBO Max.
It was like when they were younger. It was like baby Scoobies.
Yeah, it's like Scooby-Doo babies or whatever. Yeah, and I didn't realize Paul Dini, right? Paul Dini wrote it or co-wrote it.
Yeah,
I had no idea he was working on that. I don't believe that was scheduled for the theatrical release. I believe that was just HBO Max, but I could be wrong. And the other, more relevant to this podcast, is Batgirl, the live-action Batgirl movie that was supposed to be on HBO Max, but then had been upgraded to a full theatrical release starring Leslie Grace. That was also going to have Michael Keaton, Brendan Fraser, and J.K. Simmons reprising his role of Gordon. Brendan Fraser was going to be Firefly. The movie was supposed to be very inspired by the Batgirl Year One book from early 2000s, late 90s. What was that? Like 2002, maybe?
Yeah,
2004, something like that. Great book. Awesome book.
Great. Yeah.
Very well.
Odd amount of issues.
It was like 7 issues or something,
it was
or 9 issues.
Yeah, it was like, but I think it was supposed to be 7, and they got. I don't remember, but Yeah, 2003
Yeah, I mean,
is the publication.
2003.
It
Okay,
made
it
a
was,
wonderful deluxe hardcover.
Yeah, then and the Robin Year one was very good too. Or came out about the same time. So of course, people were like, "What is going on?" Right? This movie's done. Batgirl was basically done. What is happening? So over the course of last week, and now it's Sunday, so technically stuff is still kind of hitting us, and I'm sure we'll get more in the next few weeks. There was a investor call from Warner Brother Discovery with David Zaslav, the CEO. Zaslav, I believe that's pronounced it. The CEO of he was the former head of Discovery, now head of Warner Brothers Discovery, the merged company, to go over sort of, it's like the first quarter as well as like kind of the full, like, here's where we are, here's what we're doing, here's the upcoming plans. Now, I think the mistake people make with this, because there's obviously a lot of news that came out of this, and some good, some bad. These investor call meetings and earnings calls, these are not like public PR, presentations, right? This is for investors in the company. This is for Wall Street. This is to talk earnings and news drops along the way. In recent years, fans have become much more interested in this because information passes so freely on the internet. People record it or people report on stuff immediately. I know I get super into the Nintendo quarterly reports because there is light news that can drop during those, including some cool sales chart stuff. And just as a fan of the company, I appreciate this stuff. It's not something that really companies are meaning for the public to get like actively involved in and reported on like a fan, like from a fan perspective. But that's what's happened to the point of Disney is basically now Disney understands this and it's now a thing, right? Like the investor call is like a big Disney thing, and they kind of have started peppering it with small announcements and some more interesting information that gets out to like the actual like fan media. So a lot of this was sort of with Batgirl. There was rumors flying everywhere what the cause was. There were reports that internal testing and audience tests were abysmal and that the movie was unsalvageable and absolute garbage. And it should never have been made. It's terrible. Just they had to scrap the whole thing. It was just they could not make it any better. Warner Brother Discovery looks at it and goes, "No, this is not good." Then there's reports immediately after that it actually landed right in the same testing kind of bracket as other movies like Shazam that had been, tested around the same percentage, but then, changes are made and they update some stuff and generally very well received by audiences. So there's a lot of very strange question on what of that is true. Warner releases a statement that says the decision to not release Batgirl reflects our leadership's strategic shift as it relates to the DC Universe and HBO Max. Leslie Grace is an incredibly talented actor, and this decision is not a reflection on her performance. We are incredibly grateful for the filmmakers of Batgirl and Scoob Holiday Hunt and their respective casts, and we hope to collaborate with everyone again in the near future. So, obviously, Warner Brothers isn't going to come out and make a statement that goes, Batgirl sucks ass, and we're just scrapping it. So, it's at least officially kind of unclear what's happening here. So this is all pre the earnings call and everything. And at this point, it's a complete shit show. It's a complete meltdown from the fan community, from people on both sides, whether you're pro DC or anti DC, or you're excited or not excited. For the people that hate it, it's just more proof that DC is completely off the rails and the films are dead and everything's destroyed. For the people that hated quote unquote woke culture. Oh, it's another garbage movie that we're, they realize how bad it is and they're just going to scrap it because, go woke, get broke. Oh, look, we're winning. This is stupid. We're going to cancel this. Then articles started coming out. Man, can you remember this all happens in like a 24-hour period? Articles start coming out. The potential real reason for the cancellation of these movies and a bunch of other projects within the merger. Because what was that? Raised by Wolves, right? Brock, wasn't that one that HBO canceled?
They canceled Raised by Wolves, so it wasn't going to pick up a season 3.
Yeah, there was a whole list of stuff that got canceled right when the merger happened, and then there was canceled, which is understandable. Stuff gets canceled; it happens. But to cancel 2 basically finished movies and shelve them is like unheard of. Canceling a show when it didn't perform, whatever, sucks, but understandable. But this is something
New Mutants came up as the example, right? Like when there was a merger. Yeah. New Mutants was virtually done.
Pushed and pushed.
It got pushed back, but they eventually released it, right? Like,
right.
Not like it was anything that was going to be like this big game-changing thing, but they released it.
Yeah. So Variety comes out with an article that says that several sources that have stated that Discovery will use Batgirl, Scoob, and a number of movies that were released direct to HBO Max that were then removed from the service. These are exclusive movies that had been put out already recently that were pulled from the service because it's a way to recoup costs on a tax write-off. Because I hire accountants. I'm not an accountant. There is tax liability because of the merger. It's like a $25 billion merger. So there's all this money that has to be traded hands. Anything that they can use to reduce their tax liability in the first year, they're going to use. They had till a certain date to report these losses. So again, the belief is that they felt these movies would not recoup their money theatrically. They would not recoup their money on HBO Max. It would not increase subscriptions of the service. It's possible their quality was poor, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. The movies they pulled off, they did not finish their first year contractual obligations. I don't know the specifics on that. It's something like that where basically we can axe these movies way early and get these. And it is more important to write the loss off as a tax write-off to reduce future tax liability for the end of the fiscal quarter or for the end of the fiscal year than it is to release it and possibly break even or maybe even lose money if the movie's bomb. So this does seem...
And don't forget, we're going to fire people.
Well, let's actually get to that. The rumor, right, because that's actually a really important rumor. The rumor at the same time was that HBO Max was going to lay off 70 to 80% of their production staff, not staff. I think that was misreported. The rumor was actually the production staff of new content, not like the global staff of HBO Max. But they were obviously there's going to be some merger between Discovery Plus, is that what it's called, and HBO Max, and so there could be some redundancies. But the rumor pre the call was that they were going to also scrap basically all original content for HBO Max. That stuff would go to HBO like it traditionally does. Succession, Game of Thrones, whatever. The new Game of Thrones is up now. What's the other one? House of Dragons. That type of stuff. Westworld, right? That's not going away. But the stuff that's exclusive to HBO Max. So for us, that's Titans, Harley Quinn, Doom Patrol, Batgirl, right? Although that did get bumped up to the theatrical release. The Green Lantern TV show that's been in some form of early pre-production for multiple years now. So this was the rumor going into the earnings call. Okay, everyone with me? Everyone good?
Everyone fell asleep,
Yeah.
but they're good.
Well, this is like Wednesday, Thursday, right? This is
Yeah,
I think Wednesday,
yeah.
Thursday, right? Because or Thursday, it was like Wednesday and Thursday was the earnings call. Or, Friday morning was the earnings call. So I mean, you can understand this is a fucking nightmare, right? That basically Discovery was coming in and just going to completely destroy Warner Brothers, and for the reasons of this podcast, DC Comics films and movies, and God knows what they would do with the comics. Okay,
Just keeping that Warner Brothers track record of fucking shit up when.
I don't know. I have kind of an outside perspective on this, just because out of everybody on the call, I kind of feel like I work for a larger company.
Yeah.
And when I first made the transition from working at like startups to larger companies and stuff, one of the interesting things that I had a conversation with my boss at the company I was at before this company is how everything kind of goes circular. As leadership changes, everything gets siloed or they try to remove the silos. But it always, like when you're at a larger company long enough, it's always sort of like that snake eating its own tail in the path that just happens over and over and over. So as I started seeing some of this stuff come out, it's very much like the restructure that happens at a larger company where, yes, you get the redundancy trimmed and that kind of stuff, and you find yourself going down the same paths you already went down. Like that whole idea of, for how many years was Batman only allowed to be used in the movies, live action, and Bruce Wayne couldn't appear on Smallville and like that kind of stuff. And then it kind of turned to, no, we can't oversaturate. So I just kind of felt like this was the beginning of that turning back around where they're now going again, being like, we want to hold off on these things for just making them big theatrical events and not pollute the waters with stuff that isn't
right.
in that. So as much as we talk about how a lot of, to me, this is just kind of returning back to that status quo of Smallville days and that kind of stuff where they started to get very hyper-focused on how certain characters can and will be used, etc.
Well, so let's get to the earnings call, because I think that is where there's really different ways to look at what was announced depending on how I think you feel about how these things should go. There wasn't a lot of specific info, but I'll give you my read. I'll give you my read on it, right? So, when the belief here again was that this was going to be this is the end. They're scrapping everything, right? What I found so fascinating about the earnings call is that it really did. It's almost like every rumor, from at least what Zaslav had said, is the exact opposite. So while there is potential problems with some of the content, like Batgirl, right? Remember, there was no announcement that they were going to scrap Blue Beetle, which is in production, right? Which has been filming. There wasn't talk about Flash or Shazam or Black Adam. It's just this one movie, right? So there's a possibility that it is just really bad, right? We don't know. I don't think any of us know.
I will say that when they made the announcement, because as you talked about, this was originally supposed to be an HBO Max movie, the way they spun it when they decided it was going to be theatrical is because they saw so much potential in it at the time.
Oh, sorry, Charlie, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, that was the spin of it, is this movie deserves to be in movie theaters. And now the spin is it doesn't even deserve to be anywhere.
Well, I think that was I don't know about that.
I was going to piggyback off what Charlie said, because here's one little extra info. If anybody's really interested in the business side of this, there's a podcast called The Town, which had a whole episode on this scenario the day that it happened. And they told a story in there about the test screening of Batgirl and how the executives at Warner Brothers were there. And the question that they ask in the focus group after the movie is, I'm paraphrasing here, I can't remember the exact wording, but did it feel big to you? That's what they were asking the audience. Did this feel like a big screen movie? And the feedback apparently at the screening was it felt like a TV pilot. And so if their move is we're going to make this a TV movie or a streaming movie, oh wait, actually let's make it a big screen movie. You can't just snap your fingers and do that. Like you've designed something for one platform. But I found it interesting that was the question that they were trying to drill down onto the audience was, aside from did you like it, this and that, and those focus group questions are always like, who's your favorite character? What was your favorite scene? Blah, 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 blah. I've been in many of those before. I've never been asked, did this feel like a big screen movie to you? That's a new one.
But I think, look at Birds of Prey, right? That, I think, got a little unfairly sidelined because of the pandemic. It wasn't at the shutdown, but it was pretty close, and there was already some concerns, and reviews were pretty decent for it. But Birds of Prey was a much smaller movie, than some of the big, Marvel and DC stuff had been. My assumption, just from reading all these things, and especially from that report, right, is that from that podcast, is that that while it might have been okay, does it make big screen sense? Is this a movie that's going to pull in 400 or 500 million? Right? If it's a 90 million movie, 20 million to polish it off. These are the numbers I've seen thrown around. I don't know how accurate it is, but let's go with it. 20 million to polish it off. So you're at 111. Half that again, or more for marketing.
Yep.
So let's say you're at 160, 170. You've got bonuses and additional payouts and whatever. You got to split the cost of the theater. So, you're looking, let's say 200 million, right? If this does 200 million, Warner Discovery's looking at this as a huge loss, right?
Yeah.
You can just take the loss now, not put in another 100 million when they're having to cut stuff already. So this is all possible. We don't know, right? We don't know if it's good or bad. Maybe someday it'll come out. Some company probably has a copy sitting on their hard drive working on effects, and oops, it gets leaked next week, right? And we can all judge for ourselves. But
honestly, I'm wondering if, and I understand they cannot release it for sale, but I was actually thinking about the Aquaman pilot that they did around Smallville and like Wonder Woman.
Throw it up as like a bonus feature, right?
Yeah.
And
then it's
possible,
not technically being sold, but you could absolutely sell more copies of, say they released a special edition of the 89 Batman movie with a bonus feature of this.
Yeah. No, right.
Yeah.
I think we'll see it at some point. But I understand. It sucks.
It's going to be streamed.
But it's not, right? That's what we're saying. It can't, at least not now.
Well, no, you can't. Like, streaming is not that it's getting paid individually for that item. It can be streamed because it's not for sale. It gets dumped into the catalog.
The problem is
they can't.
Because it was originally supposed to be a streaming movie, I guarantee you there was stuff in the contracts to make it that they can't just dump it on a streaming service without some sort of...
Yeah, I've seen Charlie's... there, again, a lot of armchair Hollywooding going on here. But I've seen reports, yes, they can all put it on HBO Max. That is part of the deal. And like those movies, they had to remove.
Max.
Well,
it'll be
HBO
on
Discovery,
right? Plus, completely different thing.
But
it's not, right? You can't.
They can't claim it as a loss and then use it to make money. Right.
So those other movies they released had already been on HBO Max. I could pull up a list here if I poke around. This like they're real movies that got released, but they were exclusive to HBO Max. And they had to be pulled from the service because it was still within the timeline where they're like, these are way underperforming. If we take them off our service and remove them from circulation, we can write off the remainder of whatever, it's like a 1 year window they expect to profit off it or whatever. So they have the ability to write off some amount during that. For Batgirl, right. Yeah, 10 years from now, it gets released as a bonus feature. Probably, right? But I think they cannot release it for sale now or anytime soon. In any regard, cannot be on a streaming service. They can't throw it on like Apple TV or iTunes or anything like that. So there will be no legal way to watch it anytime soon. So a lot of the statements in this call sound good, but they sounded good under AT&T. They sounded good under DC Films. They sounded good pre-AT&T, and none of them actually panned out. So the question is, do you believe that they can make this happen?
Does Warner Brothers have a 10-year plan? No.
Right. Do you believe the new people in charge of Warner Discovery can make this happen? Now, I am more likely to believe it this time. It's Charlie Ball. It's Charlie Ball. It's Charlie Brown in the football. I know, but when the merger happened, Mike, you can go back. My comments was, while Discovery may not be my thing, they at least produce content, and it might not be great, but they do it, and they do what they do well. If they can apply that mentality to Warner, awesome. The thought is AT&T sucks ass, and whatever problems Warner Brothers had pre-AT&T was made 10 times worse under AT&T. No direction. They're a telecom. The people at the head, the decisions that they had to make, they did not know how to do this. They did not know the direction to go. They did not literally know how to run a movie company. There was no real guidance. They were flip-flopping on ideas back and forth. Zaslav at least seems to have a path. Now, it may not be the path that everyone wants, but it appears to be a path that makes sense. But the question is, do you believe him? Do you believe he can do it? Do you believe that this is going to work? So they are not cutting. Well, we don't know about staff on HBO Max. That has not been officially revealed. There's going to be layoffs because of mergers. It happens all the time. But there is no talk of laying off production staff. He says, we are not cutting production. We are going to vastly expand production of exclusive content for HBO Max and Discovery. So the merge service is next summer in the US. So whatever the app is called, Discovery, Warner Discovery Plus or whatever it is, they're going to take HBO Max, Discovery, smash them together, put it out. Whatever it's called, maybe it's Discovery Plus and there's an HBO tab on it. We don't know, right? But whatever it is, CNN, HBO Max, all the, because they killed, do you remember that? They killed CNN Plus the day they bought the company, right? The day they merged, like CNN Plus dead, just gone. 30 days in, done, killed it. It's over. Scrapped because it was terrible. Not it was terrible, it was unnecessary, right? So do you believe that they're going to vastly expand production of HBO Max original content? He says it. So I have hope. I mean, you can lie, but I don't believe it. I think they're not stupid. I think you expand streaming content because that's the world, right?
So to me, it's not even necessarily. I agree with you. Based on the statements and stuff, he's going to expand content. The question for me just is, what type of content are they expanding?
Sure.
Because a lot of the messaging and stuff that I was reading into some of the statements and stuff that were made around trying to focus a little bit more on using DC in big budget theatrical stuff means, okay, they had all these plans for DC content going to HBO Max. Does that mean they're producing content, but it's not DC content? It could be more reality TV shows, in which case I'm not going to care.
Well, right. If they said they were going to expand Discovery content, I believe that's what it is. When you say HBO content, I do not believe that's the intent. I don't believe it's cheap garbage, right? The quote is they want to dramatically increase HBO Max budget, which would mean HBO Max quality content. Now, we don't know if that means DC. And I'll jump a little bit ahead and then we'll come back. But right now, no word on Titans, Harley Quinn, and Doom Patrol. Just no word, right? Harley Quinn obviously just came out.
I thought they said there was going to be a season 4 of Doom Patrol. I thought that
Titans
was already
has
announced.
already aired, not aired. Titans has already filmed another season, if I recall correctly.
Right, that's what I mean. There's no word from the new people, the future of these. Titans 4 is still on track as far as we know. There's been no update.
But I guess what I'm saying is, like, Titans has already done the production as far as I know. So if they scrapped it, it would be throwing out what they filmed.
Correct.
Doom Patrol, I don't know if has gone back into production yet or not.
I don't believe they have, but there has been no official word that it's been canceled. But to the best of my knowledge, there's no official word it's starting again. I believe
but last we heard it was at least renewed. It wasn't on an unknown bubble before the merger. So if they end it now, it's ended it eating whatever costs go into pre-production. That's been
correct. There's been no adjusted update on Doom Patrol. Titans is done for season 4. We'll see when it airs. It should be soon. I don't think this has an air date yet. Harley's on now. I believe they announced a pickup for Harley season 4 as well. I believe, but that was a little while ago. I thought they had greenlit 3 and 4. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure Harley.
I only remember 3, but yeah.
No I thought Harley had got 3 and 4, but either way, Harley's on now. So hope for the future, right? Green Lantern, the Green Lantern Corps show, which has been in some form of production for years at this point, on Kevin Smith's...
It'll be on Netflix in like 10 years.
On Kevin Smith's
Batman on
what
Batman?
the heck's it called? No, it's his
The Staff.
He has so many different podcasts. I know the one you're talking about, but it's not like the Fat Man on Batman. It was
it's on Hollywood Babylon. Yeah. He got a call that he was supposed to work. I actually had completely forgot this got announced because they've never said anything about it since it got announced. Strange Adventures was supposed to be an anthology about DC Comics characters, right? He got a call that Strange Adventures has been pulled. Now, again, it seems like Strange Adventures was going to be one-off, small characters, big budget, HBO Max exclusive. Maybe not what they want to do. I guess I should backtrack slightly here because Zaslav says Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, big tentpole theatrical releases, major budgets, major movies, 10-year plan, like Brock said. They brought in, I had the guy's name here, where is it? Alan Horn, who was a former Walt Disney Studios chairman and worked with Feige on the early days of the MCU. 10-year plan for theatrical DC Comics properties, starting with Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, big guys. So we can kind of roll back to that at some point here in the middle and in the future. But Strange Adventure axed. This was told by Kevin Smith at the episode he was working on. Which Kevin, I don't know if you heard what the episode was. It was Jimmy Olsen and Jimmy Olsen and
Bizarro.
Fucking also another character. Fucking hell! Like my brain is just like totally. Oh, Jesus Christ! Jimmy Olsen, and Perry White. Like I could not come up with Perry White. That was the craziest thing. Get kidnapped by Bizarro and go to Bizarro World. Right? That sounds like the greatest thing ever. Right? But the entire show had been scrapped.
Yeah, and I mean, in the podcast that you're talking about, he goes into a lot of detail about what he had planned for that story.
Yeah, and it is seemingly. Also, Green Lantern has been scrapped because it's the same,
Well, it's from that. It's more
Smith believes
he believes it's been scrapped because he has not heard anything about it in a long time.
Right.
Like he wasn't specifically working on it, but he feels like he would have heard some rumblings about it if it hadn't been scrapped.
Yeah. So these are not official, but Strange Adventure appears dead, and Green Lantern is somewhat likely dead. We'll see, right?
So, I guess my 2 cents on this is, so I don't know when Strange Adventures went into production and stuff, But the Green Lantern series was announced so long ago now that it's hard for me to believe that was ever going to happen if it takes this long before they've even started filming something. Because, like, the Green Lantern series was, like, one of the things they announced early when HBO Max launched.
Yeah. No, they had been talking for
Yeah.
like 5 years about this show, and it never even saw the first bit of pre-production.
Yeah.
Like nothing, right?
Yeah.
So
I guess what I'm saying is I wouldn't necessarily call that a casualty of the merger because I have no clue if it was ever actually going to happen.
Probably dead anyway, yeah. So are these things good? Aquaman's good, right? Shazam and Flash seem good. They're not going to, unless something bombs, they're not going to fuck with The Rock. Like, he could put asses in seats. So I firmly believe The Rock's going to have his sort of little universe of buildup of stuff here. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, yeah, it sounds great.
Well, but
we could be sitting here in 5 years.
Here's my question, and this just has to, because the way they talk about it is they're starting from scratch, per se, which means, does that mean Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman's done? Or does that mean that they just ignore everything that was previously done with Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman and just, do you understand what I mean in terms of,
and that's right. That's the question. We could be sitting here in 5 years and there's no Superman movie announced. And none of this is all bullshit. None of this happened. Or we could be sitting here in 6 months and like, holy fuck, they just announced a Henry Cavill Superman movie for Christmas 2024, right? Like, both of these things are as likely as they're as likely as each other because,
or a completely different actor as Superman, like that. That for me is where a lot of this is. Like, is this the official announcement that the current iteration of the EU, that for good or bad, is too closely tied to the Snyderverse, is dead? Or is this okay, we're going to try and course correct with the actors we already have? Or is this okay, we're going to keep Shazam around because Shazam has not been close enough tied to the other movies to not be able to course correct and rock with Black Adam? But it could absolutely be that Aquaman and Wonder Woman and that stuff need to be retired if they really want to start over.
I'm going to read it real quick from, this is actually from, Oops, Pop, if I can pull up here.
Whoops, Pop, is that a new news website?
Oops, Pop. Yeah, no, this is specific from Popverse, which is if you're not following them, you need to, because they are now your best news source for comic book and comic book related stuff online. This is Chris Aaron. This is Graham McMillan and a bunch of the best people in comics journalism. Like, not the Comics Journal. I'm talking like superhero, Marvel, DC, comic shop comics journalism. They are all now working with what's the parent company? It's
I don't know.
Read Pop, right? So the convention organizers. So Popverse is now your number one news source for comic book news because they're the best people in the industry doing this. No listicles, no repeating the same articles 20,000 times on social media, no memes. They cover. They are all in.
I have to say, if you're not getting paid for this, Ryan, this feels very weird.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. No, they covered single.
You get paid for this. We all need to get
Oh no! I've never heard Ryan sound more like an advertiser than right now.
Ryan doesn't want people going to Bleeding Cool, so
this
he
is
exactly going to pump people as far away from Bleeding Cool as possible.
Cool because it's not CBR. Newsroom is okay. The beat's good. They just don't put out enough. This is the company. This is the one. Popverse is the one, because this is exactly what we should have. They cover every convention. They covered Comic-Con.
You didn't hear they're going Substack.
Their real big launch. So it is paid, right? There is a paid version of Popverse that has more content. It's like live panels. It's not the articles. It's live streaming stuff. Because they're part of Read Pop, you can buy it to get early access to tickets, yada, yada, yada. But the free site, awesome. Awesome. ThePopverse.com, or just look up Popverse. They are Now you're gold standard for comics journalism. Go follow him on every social media account right now. So this is Graham McMillan on Popverse. He says Zaslav specifically mentioned Black Adam, Shazam: Fury of the Gods, and Flash as 3 upcoming DC movies that the companies believe in, adding that if anything, he wants to make them better before release, although he didn't specify how. He has specifically named Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman as globally recognized brands, describing DC and its characters as a particular priority of WBD. So Warner Brother Discovery, if you see WBD, that's what it is. Moving forward.
W double D?
WBD.
Oh,
The object is to grow the DC brand, grow the DC characters, but just as importantly is to protect the DC brand. So, subpar quality started by multiple heads of Warner under AT&T, they're just coming in and cleaning house. Goes back to my original question. Do you believe this?
Nope.
Do you believe, Brock?
Nope.
We're gonna go person to person. 10-year plan, DC, top priority for WBD. Most blockbuster films, they literally said, like, we are using the MCU as a guide. This is our guide, right? And why not? It works, right? Do you believe?
Nope.
Okay.
And just because, like, you talked about him saying Batman and this and this and this are globally known franchises. No shit. We've known that for a long ass time. Everybody's wanted DC, like, to thrive as well as Marvel does in the cinematic universe, but you didn't follow the simple rule of the whole thing, which is you need to get somebody at the head with the vision who is going, I want to make a Captain America war movie. Who do I need to make that movie? Not, I'm going to take a director and follow whatever he does and make it his verse, right? We don't say the Marvel Cinematic, we don't say the Feige universe. It's the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right?
Sure.
Of course, there are directors' names that are thrown around here, right? You know, like you have James Gunn, Russo, like all of that stuff. But
obviously, Gunn made his mark on the Marvel universe, but yeah.
But you have all of these creative talents that they brought in to add their creative talent to the movie that was being made.
Now, Kevin's going to tell you that he would prefer individual standalone, go crazy, go all, it's great to have a connected universe.
We had that stuff. That stuff is what we had initially in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but then they were rolling the dough and making it bigger and bigger and bigger. So, but can Warner Brothers do this? I don't know. They have spent 40 years of my life fucking up left and right, not knowing what to do. They didn't know what to do. AT&T didn't know what to do. Discovery is like, well, let's axe maybe this little thing and this little thing. I'm like, just do the Disney thing and reset everything. Like, just rip the Band-Aid off. Say, nope, this has come out, this has come out, this has come out, and that's it. Everything else from here on out is a fresh start. But they're not doing that. They're going, oh, well, we want to do this and this. And I'm like, okay. Tiptoe around. Kevin. Like, it's like.
Yes.
Yeah, no. That's totally understandable. Kevin, yes. Do you believe? 10 years, 10-year plan.
Wait, do I believe that they are believing? Do I believe that they believe that, or do I believe that will come to fruition?
No, do you believe that this is going to work this time? Do you believe they're going to do this? Do you believe that they have the ability to not only correct the theatrical version, but expand DC as a brand, as a property, protect the characters, everything that we've said? This is what they say. Do you believe this is going to happen? Because this is now really the third time we've heard the same thing from 3 different groups of people. Do you believe this
for
time?
Shits and giggles, I will say yes. I believe that they will. It may not pan out to be a version that everybody on this show or who's listening to this show likes, but yes, I believe it will. There will be something that resembles that.
Like, will we go another 10 years without a Superman movie?
Hell no. No way. You'll have a Superman movie in the next 5 years.
I think it's sooner than that.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay, I'm not saying in 5. I'm saying in the next 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Charlie.
you said,
okay.
last sentence. I was just going to say, because you mentioned what I would prefer. I think you do your DC theatrical movies are Black Label, and by that I don't mean rated R. I mean everybody does their own thing, and it doesn't have to tie together. I would, and it's easy to sit here and tell people how to run a business. I wouldn't have multiple actors playing Superman in theatrical movies. So I would kind of like carve those characters. Like there can be one version on the big screen of this character. But other than that, sure, make a Plastic Man movie, make a Doom Patrol movie, make a Joker 2, make whatever, and don't worry about tying in the continuity.
Yeah. I mean, it does appear, I would think, that that's not the plan, that they want the stuff to all be interconnected. You follow the MCU model. And then after a number of years of successful films, they start rolling out the high-budget TV shows, right? That's the model. So, and then you experiment, right? Cool. Look, I would love crazy, weirdo characters of every type and form in every fashion, cheap budgets, huge $500 million movies. Give me everything. But, it seems like, no, we'll just use the MCU as a guide and go from there. So I know we've all kind of said on this podcast, we prefer the current DC model to the current MCU model because it just feels like we're getting more unique content.
Wait, Ryan, should I blow the dust off my old Green Lantern script and head on down? This may be the opening.
Maybe. Charlie, do you believe?
So I absolutely believe they have a 10-year plan, but I also I basically believe history is going to repeat itself. If they start out on the right foot and everything seems to be going right, then we'll see the fruition of the 10-year plan. But the first time you see a stumbling block, you're going to see all sorts of shuffling. This movie gets canceled, new movie gets greenlit, that kind of thing.
That's the Warner Brothers way, baby. Skittish as fuck.
I mean, realistically,
Sorry, Charlie.
If Marvel had flops along the way, we would have seen the same kind of thing there. Like, even though we can all say that, like, Iron Man 2 wasn't the best movie, or Iron Man 3 wasn't the best movie, they all performed at the box office enough
of course.
to declare them a success. So, from that kind of perspective, like...
It was again, that brand was
they're
built
going
up.
to start their quote-unquote 10-year plan, and hopefully they're better at course-correcting this time because... as I said, this is exactly what we've seen. Now, what I am hoping we don't have happen, and this is what worries me about when you start talking about like protecting the brand and stuff, is I don't necessarily want the Superman and Lois show to go away as a victim of we only want Superman on the big screen in live action now and stuff like that. I'm
CW's
a little more
axed, baby.
Like, we know the next season of The Flash is the last season of The Flash, and I can kind of shrug because it's been on long enough and whatnot.
And then I assume the CW sale and the killing of the Arrowverse is all related to this of like and look, I love it, but let's be realistic. Get the poor quality stuff off the air. We want quality content. We're going to throw money at this. We need to get rid of the garbage. Again, I don't feel that personally, but.
I do not have a problem with the Flash ending. I do not have a problem with a lot of the choices they've made. Like, I'm still kind of hoping that Legends of Tomorrow figures out some way to kind of wrap up what they were doing, just because it was on the air long enough. It deserves an actual ending. But in general, it's not like I'm upset that the Flash is coming to an end, or that Supergirl came to an end, or that Black Lightning was canceled, or like I don't really care about a lot of the moves and stuff, but at the same time, like, I'm still enjoying the Superman and Lois show a lot. And what we've seen in the past, especially when you get into these sort of knee-jerk reactions and trying to protect the IP, is what that really translates to is we're going to greatly limit how this IP is used so we can try and make sure that people aren't calling the show better when there's a Superman movie or that kind of thing. So,
I know. Before I get to Lane, couple last things. Just a couple quick notes here, so I don't forget. My Adventures with Superman series, not cut as far as the creator knows as of this time. That was an animated series heading to Cartoon Network with Lois and Clark. And there was there was another one too. Joker 2 officially released.
Teaser.
Got an official release date of what is it? October 4th, 2024 with Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
Seemingly playing Harley Quinn. Not official.
I don't
but
give a rat's ass.
She's officially in the movie.
That's great. Awesome sauce. Can't wait to see
likely playing Harley Quinn.
Can't wait to see it.
I love how we're treating this as like a question that Joker 2 would go for. That movie made way too much money for them not to be like...
Yeah.
It's almost like I'd be more shocked if they said they're pulling the plug on that.
Yeah. Ben Affleck reportedly replacing Michael Keaton as Batman in Aquaman 2. Also, that they're pulling Michael Keaton out of... Now, that may be because of Flash getting delayed, and Michael Keaton's not into that. So if Aquaman 2 is... No, Aquaman 2 is after Flash.
Yeah.
So maybe...
They aren't saying a lot about the Flash, especially with the ship with Ezra Miller. So, there's...
Zaslav said they believe in it. Zaslav said it's a go.
Well,
now, making it better may mean removing Ezra Miller.
Yeah, that movie might be fine. Like, the movie might be safe. But going forward with Ezra Miller, that's probably also why you don't see that Michael Keaton thread, right?
Yeah.
Batgirl was connected with Michael Keaton. Like,
right.
If they're talking about Aquaman 2 and replacing Ben Affleck's character because Michael Keaton was connected, maybe what they're doing is they're just kind of trying to end this universe, but maybe reset it with Flashpoint. Like,
yeah, possibly. There was a Supergirl movie in some vague. Maybe we'll do this down the road.
They had production stuff. They had her in costume. They had her on set.
Well, no, that's Flash.
Oh, that was for
she's
Flash
in Flash.
Movie. Oh, yeah,
she's in Flash.
She's in Flash. I forgot.
So, talk of Supergirl getting her own movie post Flash. Rumor is also scrapped, but that was never announced. That's not official. I don't even count that as real. And I thought there was one more thing here. Maybe not. Let's scroll. No, that looks like it. So, couple little notes. Lane, still there?
Yep.
Hit me up. Do you believe?
I honestly, I don't really care. It's because to me, it's just like Kevin said, it's about getting good movies out, regardless of whether they have a plan or not. Because to me, the plan, I don't think they have a plan like Marvel, where it's A has to go to B, B has to go to C. As far as they're concerned, there is, like you said, they got the Trinity: Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman. The next 10 years, there's going to be at least 2 movies of every of them. That's the plan to me. That's the plan, not the plan to go ABC. Like, it's about getting the brand out there, getting those characters out there.
Well, we are getting a Batman movie. It's with Pattinson. Sorry. Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's the Batman movie we're getting.
Right.
We're getting an Aquaman.
Yeah.
But are we getting another Patty Jenkins Wonder Woman?
I don't know. But I'm sure we're going to get a Wonder Woman. Whether it's Patty, we don't know. But I'm just saying, I don't think there's a 10-year plan that has to link them, though. It's just a 10-year plan that we have to get these characters in front of everybody in a quality manner. I don't think that we have to be, this has to connect, this has to connect, this has to connect. No, it's just, let's get these out there.
Yeah.
I'm afraid for Kevin and Ryan. I think Mr. Mind might be on the chopping block.
We'll see. So, and I'm team believe, it sounds good. And I think there's going to be, someone described Zaslav as like a bulldozer. And yeah, AT&T sucked ass. I had hoped that AT&T is going to give them money after money after money to do whatever. But the horrible way they ran Warner obviously didn't work. Discovery's small, but, run right. It's profitable. It's successful. It's not for me. I don't care about it. But
so I have a side question just because I don't remember exactly. So Justice League, like the Whedon Justice League, came out before the AT&T merger. But
because AT&T was,
AT&T was like, I'm not sure. Like, I know that AT&T shifted stuff around because that was around the pandemic, right? Like the beginning of the pandemic.
No, it was before that. It
Yeah.
was before that.
No, but that's when they did the restructuring
But
at
like
DC Comics.
Aquaman was after. I don't know if it was filmed before the merger, but it came out after the merger, as far as I recall. Same with.
Yeah, they officially closed their merger June 2018, right? And since then, like nothing has happened, right? All the Snyder stuff was pre-merger.
Yeah, but
right?
I guess what I'm saying is, so like, yes, we all kind of agree Wonder Woman 2 is not as good as Wonder Woman 1. But if you look at Aquaman was successful, Shazam was successful. I mean, obviously, Black Adam was already in production before.
Yeah. Suicide Squad?
Oh, yeah. The Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Well, that was just riddled with pandemic issues on releasing on streaming service.
But I guess what I'm saying is, like, I don't necessarily disagree that AT&T mishandled stuff, but at the same time, looking at Joker and the Batman and all of their movies, as far as I recall, other than the Suicide Squad, which had pandemic issues, I think were profitable.
Yeah, no, I'm not. It's not about the quality. It's that everything ground to a standstill. That the problems with Warner and the problems with the Snyderverse got like compounded with AT&T, that they had no vision for 4 years. 4 years in, and again, this stuff takes place. It took a while for the whole merger thing to happen, right? So 5 years, and they're like, we're not really. We don't know how to recover from. They could never recover from Batman v Superman. It just fucked them forever. Like they never recover from that. Joker's different. Batman's
but
different.
Like AT&T,
the connected universe, right?
AT&T inherited the mess.
Sure, and they didn't fix it.
Yeah,
they had 3 years. They had 4 years to fix it, and they didn't do anything. Right? They said we're just going to go off and let everyone do whatever. And again, cool, but.
Well, it seems to me like their move was to get rid of the connected universe other than the small pieces that were working, which was Aquaman and Wonder Woman.
Yeah, so and that's my question. What was their goal? Was their vision? What was the idea?
Their goal was to sell it to Discover, apparently.
Well, Shazam was theirs, because Shazam was 2019.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They had a lot of successful stuff going on with the DC properties in this time. Like, I'm not necessarily saying that it all lived up to when you compare it to Marvel, but at the same time, when you compare it to what was happening prior to them taking over, there were a lot more successful movies after than there were before.
But then that's my question, right? But the MCU now has this plan of a maybe connected universe, but some vision going forward. I feel like AT&T comes in, says, okay, we have these characters, we have the world, but it just takes so long for any of the stuff to happen. But Superman movement.
The way
Aquaman 2 took way too long, right?
I will agree with that. Yes.
Yeah, so like Aquaman 2 should have been like last year. Like
well, you also have to remember AT&T inherited this mess, and then a pandemic hit, which grinded a lot of production stuff to a halt. But like Aquaman, yes, there's a 5-year difference between the two films.
I feel like the difference here is I like the idea of throwing shit against the wall and seeing what sticks, because that gets you a lot of varied stuff, but it doesn't. There was no consistent vision for how to move all of DC's films and television properties forward.
Yeah,
it was very scattershot, which again could make some very cool content and make some neat things, but it appears internally it was even more divided than it was, because you had Warner and AT&T, no one's on the same page. So, Snyder, for good or bad, Snyder had a vision, right? Snyder had a path forward. Yeah, Snyder had his people.
They got behind him because he had a vision. Right. We're like, well, we need a front runner, so go be our front runner. But he wasn't the front runner that they needed, because they needed a Kevin Feige, not not a director.
Snyder's got his one line, right? Yeah. So, and that's what people said, like, oh, James Gunn should run everything. He shouldn't because James Gunn has one.
Yeah.
It's a very good, but I don't want everything to be James Gunn. I want someone that can oversee 10 different visions, not one person with one vision. And everything's totally consistent because you don't get unique products that way. You get everything's very homogenized, which you can argue that MCU has kind of become that to a degree, but you still.
But I think
the creators get their path in this sort of bigger, direct, path of everything's moving in the same direction. Where I love the idea of, like I said, big budget, small budget, TV, streaming, HBO, CW. We're gonna just hit every market. Sounds cool, but internally appeared to be a much bigger problem. So bulldozing it all, one clear vision, one clear path. We'll see. Because it didn't work under Snyder, but he was not in charge of everything. No. He was in charge of the movie line. He wasn't in charge of TV. He wasn't in charge of animation. He wasn't in charge. So I want to believe that this can work. Obviously, I want to believe this can work.
So for me, the question just becomes, are we talking about a bulldozing or not a bulldozing? And that's where, to me, it's sort of a question. I have no doubt they will have a 10-year plan. But I also don't see them scrapping Aquaman if Aquaman 2 does well, or Shazam if Shazam 2 does well.
You're not going to scrap these properties that have done well.
But that's the question is if you're trying to reset things, do you focus on trying to build up a new Aquaman brand, or what does that mean if you keep the Jason Momoa Aquaman brand alive? Stuff like that. Because then you kind of have I don't know. That's why when you get into like the Henry Cavill and that kind of thing question, like if they're really trying to reset, then that really should mean we will never get another Henry Cavill Superman. I would like another Henry Cavill Superman, but that's more of a course-correcting action versus a scrapping action. And that's where with a lot of these announcements and that stuff, like I think honestly Brock might be right. They might retool the Flash movie to just be like, we're ending what we were currently doing, and we're going to send it off with this to, kind of really put an end to it. But at that point, I would guess that would take future plans for Wonder Woman and Aquaman with it. Or you reset it in such a way where you can keep the actors around, but make it clear that the previous world is done.
It's either going to be, and Ryan's going to hate this, it's either going to be rejiggered or rebirthed.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of questions coming out of this because we don't have an answer yet. And while I am completely on board with they have a 10-year plan, but they've had a 10-year plan before. I don't know enough about the people running this. Like nobody is more shocked than I am how badly certain things fell apart under Jeff Johns' watch, as it were. And I understand there were a lot of factors. Blah, 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 blah.
God knows the Snyder Bros will be after me, the Snyder Cut Bros. But
you mean the bots?
You put someone in charge to do one thing halfway through a broken movie that they couldn't do, and then forced it to come out as soon as it did.
Yeah.
I don't know what you expected. There was never a chance. They never had a chance.
Well, I'm not saying they necessarily had a chance, but Jeff Johns had his. So, as much as I enjoy the Green Lantern movie, you can't say that Jeff Johns wasn't involved in the Green Lantern. Like
but that's previous Warner.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like he has been he was involved. He kept getting more involved. Like they promoted him additional levels up, and I understand he didn't have it's my way or the highway kind of power.
No, you can only do so much. He was never.
But the same,
he was never in charge of that stuff. To the point
I think
where he was
they were trying to make him the Quesada of the Marvel cinematic universe, or consultant like Quesada was for so many years with that Marvel film stuff. But they never gave him the free reign that Quesada had.
John's for DC. I mean, he was CCO, right? So he was chief creative officer before becoming head of DC Films. All right, he was chief creative officer. Which, similar position, right? And so you can only do so much in that position. That's about keeping brand consistency across all formats, right? Video games, movies, TV, comics, licensing, everything. Head of DC Films. I mean, I forget the other guy's name. They just got shafted. They never had a chance. They never had a chance to do their own projects. And I think it's just unfair to put any of that on them. They were never in charge long enough and with the ability to really do their own thing. They got handed, a half a movie and told to completely change it. So,
but I mean,
we never saw what he could really do.
If you look at what HBO has done in the past with things like, they'll have something that's really solid that people love, but it costs too much and they cancel it.
I mean, that's Netflix. That's everything.
That's television in general.
Oh, I know. But if you like, there's things there at HBO that we've seen these issues before. You see the cracks in it.
Yeah, but I mean,
but that's everything. That's
every
Netflix show is canceled.
I always look back to the '90s Flash for exactly that perfect example of sometimes the ratings just aren't going to matter if the budget isn't where they want to be spending their money. Yeah. And like the '90s Flash was the perfect example of that, because it's not that it got bad ratings. It just was way too expensive a show to keep making.
I don't know.
And I mean, honestly, with like some of the stuff that Kevin Smith was talking about on his podcast, talking about some of the budgets that were being thrown into like this HBO Max content, I'm like, well, I get why you would want to like throw money to make good quality content and that kind of stuff. There's still a part of me that's like, you throw money like that at characters and properties that really need that kind of money. You don't necessarily say, here's the budget and make your story fit this budget. You go, this is the story I want to tell, and this is the budget that makes sense for
it.
Yeah. And, none of this is going to happen tomorrow. This is going to be, they could fast track a few things. We have a number of movies already in the pipeline, and we could get some sort of, the Investor Day, the full Investor Day meeting, which comes up, I don't remember, end of this year maybe. And 6 months from now, we'll have a lot more info. Obviously, as a comic book guy, this is all interesting. My hope is we hear something for DC Comics soon. They got their production line just slashed with the AT&T merger.
Well, that was
never recovered.
Well, that thing is, that happened 2 years after the merger finished, because remember they did all those cuts and then they did all that restructuring, like with the toys and all that stuff,
all production, and then COVID, and then video,
and yeah. But it's like so I'm like, all right, well, we'll just wait till they go down the list and DC gets hit again. So
one of my friends at DC said, the Eye of Sauron just changes to department, and it has not got to DC yet. Yeah. So they can't cut because there's nothing to cut. They are on a skeleton crew at this point. So
that's why they're pumping those variant covers so much.
If they believe protecting the brand and the future is DC Comics and it's the most important franchise, then you would hope an increased spending for DC Comics, more editors, more production staff, bigger line of comics, bigger, more graphic novel reprints, the way Marvel and Penguin Random House have done. You would think this is what's coming. Fingers crossed, because we don't know. But obviously,
it's all right. Black Label will do Clark Kent's penis, and we'll have another fiasco. And
hopefully not.
But Ryan, what makes more money? That's the problem.
Yeah, see, like the Batgirl cut is a tax write-off. Like all these tax write-off things, it's like, we want to spend money, but
cutting Batgirl is the equivalent of like half of DC's output for an entire year. Like, yeah, no, of course, DC is very low on the priority. DC Comics is low on the priority.
You heard it here
movies,
from Ryan Higgins. All of those comics dead guys are going to quote him, and
but no one in the world would tell you the printed digital comic books are in the same realm as movie. The entire comic book industry is the equivalent of like Avengers, like one movie.
Mm-hmm.
It is, right?
Yeah.
One video game is the entire comic book industry, every company, every book, every graphic novel.
Yeah.
I'm in obviously, like, so they could double DC's budget and it costs them nothing. And that would be incredible. And they could hire so many more people and produce so many more books and keep so much more stuff in print. So hopefully that happens. Because if that's the case, protecting the brand, comics aren't part of the brand. Comics are the brand.
They're the start.
So,
Sure.
I mean, as much as I would love that to happen, the realist in me is more along the lines of, I hope they just ignore it. Just let it keep running and don't start cutting and all that kind of stuff. Just let it.
No. They need more. And Marvel's the same way too. Like, Marvel's a skeleton crew.
Yeah.
Like, Marvel has very few actual employees within Marvel Comics. It's a really small staff. So DC is bigger than
If you want to put your money where your mouth is when you say you want to protect the brand and protect the IPs and all that stuff, you put it where you put it in the comics. You make your core a strong foundation, because right now, if you're running your core on Skeleton Crew and something tanks or something goes the wrong way, it's going to cost a lot more money in the end to course correct after that.
So I'm not saying that I disagree with you, but I do think there's an argument to be made that, like, Batman the Animated Series did more for the Batman brand or the 66 Batman or the 89 Batman movie or whatnot than the comics ever have.
Yeah, but the comics started it. The comic is your.
I'm not saying that
the core.
I completely agree with that, but I think from a non-comic person,
oh yeah,
it's going to be a very hard sell to say that that's like to Marvel's credit, and they've done a great job at this because so much of their content is very well adapted from certain comics and storylines and stuff where you can point to source material directly. It actually helps strengthen the need for the comics. The weird thing about the DC side in a lot of ways, especially when you start talking about these things like Batman the Animated Series, I can point to comics all day long. But like the 66 Batman changed the way the comics were being done rather than the other way around in a lot of ways. And if you start looking at like the 89 Batman, again, you could point to some comics, but I don't necessarily feel like it's an interesting thing. And especially the current round of like the Snyderverse movies, I always kind of felt like because they were trying to do too much, there wasn't really a good, clean, like, read this trade. It was more like, well, you kind of need to read this, and you kind of need to read this, and you kind of need to read this if you're looking for what.
Well, the Batman was Year One, Ego, and what was the other one?
Hush.
Well, yeah, kind of.
But that's sort of my point. Like, I think in terms of purely showing the strength of the comics and how they feed the mediums is a lot cleaner of an argument on what Marvel has done thus far than what DC has done thus far. Which is really sad to say, but unfortunately, I would love to see them. Like, at least the animated movies have started to do a much better job of, like, Long Halloween. You can point directly to the Long Halloween trades and some of the other stuff if people want stuff like that, because there's a lot of that Loeb and Sale or stuff within that vein that you can kind of point to.
Yeah.
Versus, like, I don't know, there's a lot of other stuff where, because as you said, you you let these people kind of do what they want to do, it makes it very hard to be like, this is a comic like what they did.
Yeah.
Would you say, Kevin, a tight 120, including Sandman?
Yep, that's what speaking of a 10-year plan.
We've got a lot more to say about Warner Brothers Discovery.
We will be saying a lot more about Warner Discovery because more news will come out, and
of course,
and we will update you on the 10-year plan.
Sure, it'll all fall apart next week. We're not going to talk about Sandman, episode 1, Netflix streaming.
What was the name of it? What was the name of the first episode?
It's a good question. I don't know the episode names in front of me. It's not just called Preludes and Nocturnes.
No, it was like something guest.
Yeah, what is the name of the? It's actually the name of the first issue.
So is it Sleep of the Just?
So, is that what it's called?
So
okay.
Trying to get to.
So I don't know if we need to go through and give our bona fides here on Sandman. Again, spoilers. Full spoilers for episode 1. Episode 1 only. Full spoilers for episode 1 only. So we can just talk about the show. Because, at least a few of us have been waiting for, I don't know if I've been waiting for it, but the idea of a Sandman show or movie or whatever, and Neil Gaiman has talked about this a number of times, has been passed around for decades at this point. I think he said like they were approaching him in like 91 or 92 for like a movie. Like the book was still being made. It was only a couple of years into the run. So I mean, I've just been terrified. Absolutely terrified of what a Sandman show could be, what they could do. I've had my own thoughts of how you handle it because I thought it was basically unfilmable. But we now live in a world where special effects are free and you can do anything, right? And doesn't have to be syndicated normal TV. I was just talking to Leanne about it because she's watching it, and I was talking to the Geekbox guy. So I was like, go back 20 years, go back, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, and explain to someone that one of the most popular shows in America is Fuckboy Island, right? You guys familiar with F-Boy Island? No. One of the most popular shows on television.
It's not called
Fuckboy Island. I'm aware that it exists because it's on one of the streaming services whenever I open it.
Yes.
Isn't it like a Love Island or
F-Boy Island? Yeah.
And on on what streaming service?
It's on Hulu? What's it on? It's HBO Max. Yeah. Yep.
Oh God, Discover More Fuckboy Island is coming. Shit.
So we now live in a world where a Sandman show that is accurate to the comic is possible. And not just possible here. Because holy crap. That first episode, it's Sandman. Yeah, there's some changes. Yeah, they took stuff from Overture, which was interesting. I like that. I was actually really surprised. I didn't know when we were going to start seeing the Corinthian, but they're taking like the Overture, like prequel stuff, and sort of massaging Corinthian into the because remember he doesn't come until
no, the Corinthian doesn't come until the Doll's House stuff because
so he's not originally in any of these in the first arc. No. Corinthian is not in it at all, but kind of seeding him as a character early is a very smart move.
But the basic concept is there. Dream is we're spoilers, right? For Dream is captured by Richard Burgess. He's trying to capture Death. He captures Dream. All of the stuff gets affected like it did in a comic book with the sleep sickness and all that stuff. We have Ethel Cripps, right? Or no, Ethel Cripps is like there, but we also have Kincaid. Edith Kincaid, is it Edith?
The
girl that falls asleep and never wakes up, right?
It's
the great grandmother of Unity. Unity Kincaid. Thank you. and it's Rose Walker's great grandmother or something.
But yeah, this like they have to add a couple generations because that takes place in 2022, not in 1987.
Yeah.
So or 1989 or whatever.
Yeah,
so
it's around the 80s. Yeah,
so
it's in the 80s.
So obviously there are adjustments, but everything makes sense. The capture,
it's the straight panel. It's the straight panel from like
it's unreal.
Him escaping is the same panel just flipped.
Yeah. Like where he's like going into like the,
he's going
like
into
the,
it. I watched an interview where he's like, "Yep, they just flipped it here, but it's the same exact panel."
Look, little changes, of course, sure, fine. I was, obviously in the production and as we were learning more about the show, I expected this, but you fear it's gonna be nothing. It's gonna be this totally different thing. They're gonna you have all the nightmares of what this show could be.
It's funny that you use the word nightmare.
It's perfect. It's I don't know. I zero complaints. I have nothing to complain about. It's as perfect as I think you could possibly ever do Sandman. I'm not against a dreaming show where they want to explore different stuff and go crazy and do all new content. Like that sounds wonderful. Like if this is a big hit, do a cool dreaming show where you just go wild and have an anthology like American Horror Story or something. And you just do whatever the fuck you want. But for an adaptation of the comic, it's perfect.
Well,
it's a 10 out of 10. I got nothing. I don't know what to say. And I know, look, I've only watched episode 1. I'm watching one a week. Brock, Charlie, Lane, you guys watched ahead. Kevin, you're with me, right?
Hey, I would just watch more than one on Friday night, Ryan, or Thursday night at midnight. I only watched one.
I want to be on the record, sticking with you on this in solidarity. My favorite Sandman character is Lucifer. And on the screen for episode 2, the little preview thumbnail is Lucifer. I'm like, and I did not push play. I didn't go ahead. I stuck to the plan.
You guys could, give me your thoughts, give me your opinions, because I really don't have anything to say because it's perfect.
So I went in, I watched it Thursday night, midnight drop with my roommate. Funny enough, the pacing of that first episode is hauntingly familiar to how you kind of have to explain Sandman to people and say, give it a chance, because it does that. It's that slow burn, right? Where you're not necessarily dropped right into this thing that's like action packed and gonna, just knock your socks off. You're dropped into this thing that's layered and building, and you get little hints and drops here and there of everything, right?
Also, don't forget that first issue of Sandman. It's like oversized and it's fucking dense.
Yeah, like
that first issue alone is there. Yeah. They set up a crazy amount of content in that first issue. It is a huge story in one issue. It's the entire Sandman world is introduced. It's tough to do, and they did it.
Yeah. It was 32. I think it was 32 pages in that first issue.
It was either 32 or 40 or 48. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
And what they put in that and what they took out, because, obviously being on Netflix, they don't have the rights to a lot of the DC stuff. So a lot of that stuff was removed. But just like the showing when it happened, like jumping around, seeing like this story play out, in a time, like they kind of kept a similar time frame. I think it was, or I don't remember if it was, they did the World War I versus World War II. I don't remember in the actual comic, but they kept it fairly close, but they just extended. He was gone for 100 years versus like I think 80 in the comic. So yeah, I mean, they did a fantastic job.
Yeah, those little slides of the timeline, like whatever, it's fine.
The introducing using is it the Raven Jenna? Oh God, what was it?
Oh yeah, that
Jessamy.
Like that was Overture stuff.
Yeah, I was like, wait, that. I was like, that's not another Raven in Sandman. Is that an Overture?
I think she's an Overture, right? Because remember, they talk about Matthew replacing the previous one, but we never really saw the previous one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, not in the comic.
But like that was something that was talked about in the comic, was that Matthew replaced the previous Raven. Right?
Oh. Maybe. Oh yeah. Oh, it is Dream's previous Raven.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember. I'm kind of looking up here to see if I can remember.
Because I think that Raven was an Overture.
Yeah.
And that was one of those threads that that had established. And so it was really nice to see, that in there. It was nice to see them like just layer upon layer upon layer of these characters. And you got the sense of being in that first issue, in being in that the Burgess house, the cult, of just everything that was going on. And just like, I loved it. It was fantastic. But it's like the pacing of it is just like we have, like when we recommend it to people, like the story builds, just get to the good stuff, right? Even though it's all good, it's get to that stuff where you're hooked, right?
Oh, I mean, first episode. Yeah, if you're not interested after the first episode, log off. Because with the comic, it just flows different. Comics are different than movies and TV shows. If you're not in the first episode, stop watching, because this is the show. This is what it's going to be. It was incredible. It sets up a lot of plot. There's a lot of characters and a lot going on, but you get the basics of it pretty quick. And yeah, if you're not into it, stop, because I don't think it's going to get any more. It's not going to get any more normal. It just gets weirder as it goes. So it was a great intro.
Well, so. It's the thing that they would always said, and this Neil Gaiman has said this in interviews, is that Sandman was always that beast that everyone was like, make him a Sandman movie. Can't you condense Sandman down into just a movie? And it was like, no, you really can't. But I think that as a society, we're finally ready for one of those shows that's not just a linear show or an anthology show, but a combination of the two. And, like this sets up that potential, right? Very well. So, and man, the Corinthians are awesome.
Kevin, Lane, Charlie, someone hit me.
Well, this is not going to be that fun, because I liked it as well.
We could go more. We could do more like kind of plot as we go.
I would I'll just intro, to pick a particular
later episodes.
To pick a particular element. I love seeing Charles dance. I love him in anything, and since he was dispatched from Game of Thrones, it was great seeing him here. And this is if you took the Sandman, I know we're not going to go too into it, but if you took all the collection of Sandman trades, just the volumes, volume 1 is my least favorite of the series, and it always has been. And it's always, for me, the tough hurdle for recommending to new readers, where you don't want to say, because that first storyline and the John Dee storyline is nothing like the rest of the comic, but you also can't skip it because there are things that pay off later. So there was a part of me that's like, I really am not necessarily excited about watching the capture of Dream and then him having to go and fetch his tools,
his helm,
again.
His ruby, and his
I really would rather just can we just skip ahead to the sound of her wings and go? Because that's, to me, where it really kicks off. But then after this first episode, I'm like, okay, shut up, Kevin. This was while it's still not my favorite Sandman story, this was about as well as you could do that in under an hour. That's a 50-minute show. And there are some streaming shows, we won't name them, but where even if I like it, you feel every second of that runtime, where it's just like a prison march sometimes to get through this. And this was, I would have sworn it was 30 minutes and the credits were rolling. It just, I couldn't, that's the highest praise I can give, is it didn't feel like 50 minutes. And one other element I'll call out, and then I'll tag off to Charlie and Lane, the Dave McKean end credits.
Yes.
You have to kind of, you have to squint through that coming up on Sandman thing, which I was warned ahead of time not to watch that. But then after that, those credits are gorgeous.
Charlie, hit me. I think Lane had some questions. We'll leave Lane for the end.
I really enjoyed this, but I also find it interesting because it wasn't that long ago that I was listening to the Amazon audio stuff. And I feel like anytime I engage with Sandman in another format at this point, all it really does, it makes me go, I have those absolutes on my shelf. I should open those up again and read them. With that being said, I am really enjoying, like, I enjoy listening to it on Amazon. I enjoy watching it on Netflix. It seems to be one of those things that always make me nostalgic for the comic books, but doesn't make me want to stop watching or listening to what I'm currently engaged in. It just opens up that sort of desire for more, which is interesting.
Lane?
Well, I guess probably no surprise. I loved it too. I guess I didn't realize, but like Kevin, I think, and like Toby, I didn't really read a lot of Sandman. And so when I started reading, I didn't realize that, I guess maybe I was, like Kevin said, recommended into it. So they jumped me ahead of this. So I didn't realize I didn't read this first chapter. I started with the second.
You started with
Preludes and Nocturnes, or no, not Preludes.
You started with Doll's House?
Yeah.
So you missed like this whole like build up and Sound of Her Wings. Oh.
Yeah. So I didn't realize that until now. Pleasantly surprised. I mean, I kind of knew a little bit of the history, but I really liked it. Charles Dance was amazing. All the action, like he said, the story went by really fast. It was really captivating. Honestly, like, I really enjoyed the whole, I'm not going to go into everything else. Just like, I really love the casting of almost everybody in the show. Like, it surprised me. I'll give it that. If anything, the only thing that's always been weird to me, and I understand a lot of it is because this is being filmed and it takes place in a lot of it in England, but a lot of characters have English accents that, like, I feel like it's like, I don't know if that's supposed to be on that character necessarily, but that's such a minor point.
Well, I think no, keep going.
Oh, I mean, that's pretty much it. Like, I just really enjoyed it. And like you said, it builds and builds. So like, I really enjoyed it. So, but I don't want to go into any spoilers beyond first episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. I unlike Kevin, I maybe just because it's the one I've read the most, like, I love the first arc of Sandman because it's that perfect mix of unique, but it's part of the DC universe. Some stuff is recognizable. I love just like we're searching for all these pieces. You just get such a tour in that first arc of all these realms and all these characters.
To clarify, I don't dislike it. I'm saying if I ranked all of the volumes in order, that would not be near or at the top. That's all.
Yeah. It's just because of how much that first arc builds and how much that the universe it creates and then is expanded upon. Like, I've always had a real attachment to Preludes and Nocturnes in those first like 7 issues,
well,
8 issues.
It gives you a kind of sense of what to expect, right? Like you get that there's a story running through this, but we're not following Morpheus all the time, right? We jump out and we follow John D at one point, which
like the whole book.
that whole issue, and that whole issue just is just a slap in your face of just like, we're telling it to you, and this is it. This is it. You have to take it.
Give us a couple weeks. Give us a couple of weeks. We'll talk. We'll talk about it.
No, I'm talking about the comic issue. I'm not talking about the show.
Yeah.
Like same with Sound of Her Wings, right? Like that issue is just something else, right? It's you kind of have all of these like threads that start or dangled there, and this not telling you a like cookie cutter comic book, right? Like
when obviously we'll get to that episode in a few weeks. I would put Sound of Her Wings as top 5 single issue comics I've ever read.
Yes.
Just without a second thought. Maybe top 2. I don't know what else I would put on that list for like just a single issue. It's incredible. It's one of the best comics I've ever. I mean, obviously Sandman is, but of Sandman, there's like 3 or 4 issues in there that are standalone that are like should be on the top of any comic reader's list. I think Sound of Her Wings,
Augustus.
What's that?
Augustus?
No, the Shakespeare episode, the Shakespeare one.
The that's a 2-part. That's the Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yeah,
is Midsummer Night's Dream 2?
Yeah, it's 2 parts.
That was one.
No, it's 2 parts.
Issue 50 and issue 75.
Ramadan's amazing.
And the last issue is incredible.
I really like the Emperor. I can't remember the name of that one. The one where he's just calls himself the Emperor of America.
I kind of remember
and then
that.
The August one is really good, and that's with like the Caesar and going around and talking with that dwarf guy for a day. Like there's just so much going on, and like you have so many just good stories that's entrenched in there, and it's not about Morpheus. It's about threads that like slightly connect Morpheus to something.
Yeah.
So
my favorite was always a 2-part cat story.
Yeah.
Like that was it Night of a Thousand Cats?
Night of a Thousand Cats.
I love that one.
I always like the prequel to Season of Mists. Oh, love that issue.
But one episode in, and
you were hooked at the trailer. Like, what are you talking about?
Look, you can make good trailers. There are a lot of good trailers out there.
Sandman, Neil Gaiman, DC. You're already hooked, man. This is just the final nail in the coffin, right? Like,
there's no, there's nothing's guaranteed in this world, Brock. Nothing's guaranteed in this world. Like I said,
I think Sandman has elevated itself to a level where there is enough of a fan base for the material that there's a love and care put into it that, especially with Neil, executive producing or whatever, especially with him attached to it, you just have this kind of, it becomes a community, right? It's kind of the Star Wars thing where people love Star Wars so much. People love Star Trek so much, like that you build that community and everybody's weighing in and trying to make it the best possible.
But Sandman's only really been one thing. Yeah, there's been.
I know, but
I know what you mean. It is comic wise, one of the longest, most passionate fan bases.
Yeah.
We will, as the episodes go on, I want to explore some differences and things that are, shot for shot, and things that are, very different from the comics, where they come up. The little changes have been almost like, I'm like, is that from the comic? Is that the same? I don't even remember. So like, that's how good it is. 'Cause you're just like, yeah, sure.
It's not like, oh, that's completely different. It's horrible. I hate it. Like it feels natural. It feels like it works. And I think it works because
other Burgess kid, I'm so bad with the family. I'm so bad with the names. I'm so bad
Alex
with
and Richard. Was it Richard?
With the extended, like, Was he gay in the comic? I don't remember.
I think he
that.
was. Yes.
Was he?
Yeah, I think he was.
I can't. Okay, so that's exactly one of those things where I was like, "Is that in the comic?" I don't even remember, but it works fine. So those changes are not changes. You're like, yeah, no, there's nothing in here that seemed off. I love Lucian. She was great. Like,
she's amazing.
Lucian is Lucian. He's or she in this case, just a kind of pompous, stuck up, uptight, perfectionist, right? And it's great. Like, she did. I don't remember the actress' name. She did an incredible job. Like, you only get a little bit of her, but the visuals, like the castle.
Well, it's like you see the castle in all its glory, and then you see what it happens, right? Like
decayed.
You see that
straight out of the comic,
and so
and they could have pulled the sand, the ruby. They could have done something different with all that. No, that is exactly what happens in the comic. It's unreal. I don't. Has there been a more accurate adaptation of a comic into another medium? I mean, into a film or TV.
Oh, Sin City.
Sin City. Watchmen is definitely very close, although
Walking Dead
misses the
Walking
points.
Dead is there in some aspects. It has the
early
essence.
For season 1. Yeah. Season 1 of Walking Dead.
Well, season 2 because it's the farm as well. Like there's like
after that it
deviates. It deviates, but they still keep the essence of like the prison, this right. Like they keep the essence of that stuff, even though they've created their own monster going through. They're still kind of
first 2 seasons
following a thread.
Yeah, but very, very little. Scott Pilgrim, right? But very few things stick as close.
Whiteout was kind of close.
I forgot that even came out. But it's oh boy, it's good. And sorry, you're gonna get 10 weeks of this, I assume. Like, we'll gush.
Spoiler alert for everybody: you will get 10 weeks of this shit.
Yes,
we're gonna gush.
Lane and
we're gonna gush for 10 weeks,
stamping our approval for that. Like,
yeah, and we'll and Toby should be on next week. He unfortunately could. He wanted to. He had prior engagements. He knew the recording schedule, was not able to change it because we record on Sundays. We alternate days. He is supposed to be on next week to talk about the first 2 episodes. So for everyone listening, and
although I'd be kind of interested to hear, because
he's fresh.
Episode 1, like Kevin said, it's a little bit of a slower grind. Episode 2 is very different. So I'm almost kind of curious if you can kind of get Toby's opinion separately, like watching episode 1, stop, talk about it, that kind of thing. Because like it's a very different, like from that point on, the series changes a lot. So
because we'll be talking about Imperfect Hosts. That's the name of the next episode.
See, now I'm just questioning how many attempts will it take Toby to finish episode 1 without falling asleep.
Oh, Toby. Or he's like, "This is your weird white people shit. Like, what the hell's going on? I don't understand anything."
Or maybe Toby will fall asleep and dream of a better ending, or different story.
All right, that's it. Thank you all for this wonderful podcast. We will be back next week to talk more about Sandman, episode 2, whatever. I got some loose comic news. We got some questions actually been building up, so wait for a slower week. We'll get some of the questions you guys have left me. Always like questions on patreon.com/comic conspiracy. Go buy those Sandman comics, read them, and you're like, holy shit, this is exactly like the show. It's incredible. If you haven't read them, no better time.
What's the best version?
The current version that they have
the
out,
absolutes.
The current version that they have out with the 4 trades, Ryan. It's 4 now.
Yeah,
I think that's your kind of best bet because that's pretty much what's going to be in stock for the foreseeable future.
So here are your current options. There are the original hardcovers and graphic novels, which have been out of print for decades at this point. They are the original coloring of the comics, right? So that is and obviously the single issues, but
the absolutes will have the original colorings.
No, the absolutes
they're redone.
They're all recolored. Yeah. Well, not all, but the first like 25. So they reprinted the first like 25 or 30 issues, and recolored them using like at the time modern coloring. That is the version that is in all future printings. So you can buy the 10 softcover trade paperbacks, starting with Preludes and Nocturnes. There is also volume 11, which is Dream Hunter.
No, volume 11
No.
is the
No.
Endless.
No, not Dream Hunter. It's
the Endless one.
The OGN, like the 20th anniversary graphic novel. What the hell is it called?
Yeah. Hold on.
What the hell is it called?
I'm getting it. Hold on.
And
Endless Night.
Then there is Endless Night. Sorry, Endless Night. Correct. And then
it's
there's
the only one
like
where the
Infinity,
cover is bright pink.
Volume like Infinity, which is
Dream
which is
Hunters.
Sandman. What's that?
It's Dream Hunters, and the other rando ones.
Well, so there's the 10 volumes. The now called volume 11 is Endless Nights, which is an original graphic novel, now called volume 11. Overture is volume Infinity, which is volume 12, which is a prequel, but do not read it first, because you have to read all of Sandman first, because it will not make sense if you read it before Sandman. And then there is Dream Hunters, which is a novel with pictures that's kind of like an additional volume. So there's those. There's the Absolutes, which there are 5 in Death and Overture,
Yes,
which is everything. There is the Omnibuses, which are 3 omnibuses. Volume 1 is currently unavailable, but will be back in print soon. That is everything. And then there is the 4 thicker graphic novels, which is the original run. Volume 5 is coming, which will have all the rest of it. But Volume 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are out, and that is the original 75 issues and the couple specials. So multiple options. The cheapest option are those 4 thicker volumes.
Yes.
The best option is the Absolutes, and there's various versions in between. Real fans have them all.
I don't have the omnibuses. I don't.
They're nice.
I don't have the annotateds either. I couldn't.
I don't have the annotated. I don't have the.
Well, then you're not a real fan.
They brought volume 1 back in print.
Yeah.
I don't think the rest are. It's cool, but
no, like
I didn't need it. Like they're interesting, but
I'm tempted to get these new printings because they're just like the thicker trades.
It's just like the best printings to read.
Yeah, so like I'm tempted to grab those, but yeah, it's
and almost all of them are at SakaComicsConspiracy.biz. We can buy them right now. Ship them out on Monday or Tuesday. As soon as Brock gets back in, we'll ship them out. Of course, you could get them on Amazon and other stuff like that and get them much cheaper and faster, but
no. Hold on.
Instead.
Hold on.
You
can get them.
Neil Gaiman says buy them. Neil Gaiman links to Amazon, but then says, but don't buy them from them. Buy them from your local comic book store. So I agree with Neil Gaiman. Thank you, Neil. Buy them from us.
You're not going to get them shipped properly to you from Amazon.
That is true. Brock will ship them properly.
Oh, yeah. Trust me. Il Defonso was like, holy crap, your packaging saved my one-day priority that somehow got a giant like hole punched in the side of the box. And I'm like, surprised. That's how I roll, baby.
Not surprised.
He doesn't even remember.
Thank you all.
The outro.
Thank you all for joining us. Lots more to say in the coming weeks about all these topics, but we'll get to them. Thank you to our top tier Patreon backers: Joe Duff, Kelsey May, Craig Anderson at ClearPathCoaches.com, Jimmy Rivera at the Social Forum Podcast, and Talon Bray. You can kick us a few bucks over at ComicConspiracyPodcast.com and Apple Podcast.
No, that's where you can listen to us.
Wait. Sorry, you can listen to us there. You can kick us a few bucks at patreon.com/comicconspiracy. Head over to comicsconspiracy.biz, pick up those Sandman volumes from us. And conspiratorBrock.com, that's Brock's website. Wanders in the Fourth Dimension podcast, Charlie's Doctor Who podcast. Charlie, you haven't been on in a while. What is going on in the world of Doctor Who? Did you see the TikTok? Of the crane picking up the porta potty where it got caught in the wind, it was spinning around in the circle, and then people laid over the Doctor Who theme song on top of it?
No,
is that news you were covering? Is that news you were covering on the Wanders in the Fourth Dimension podcast?
No, I can't say that we covered that one.
Okay.
If anything, I've just been raging a little bit about how much information and spoilers about the 60th is already coming out before we even
Ooh.
have the centennial.
I don't want to know. Like, yeah,
Well,
I haven't seen it. I'm happy I've missed it.
That's what's been driving me crazy, because a lot of that stuff is literally just... It's the nightmare of filming somewhere where people have cameras and really wishing people wouldn't attach pictures into normal feeds without spoiler stuff attached. What can I say? I'm tired of seeing pictures I don't want to see.
Sounds like a
yeah,
song.
I understand.
Especially for something that's over a year out.
Yeah.
Okay. I will end my rant there.
I'm excited. Kevin has the weekly interview series called Between the Panels at the Eisner-nominated fanbasepress.com. And don't forget to visit leannehill.com. My wife, Leanne, you can see her artwork on there and buy prints from her at the store, as well as at etsy.com/shop/leannehillart. Halloween is right around the corner, and I can tell because she is selling a shitload of Haunted Mansion prints again.
Well, yes, because
some of our
Disney's
best
already
friends.
started to transform it.
Yep, and so that's how we know Halloween is soon, because suddenly she's getting orders for like every single one of her Haunted Mansion prints like multiple times a day. So etsy.com/shop/LeanneHillArt. Go over there and pick up some stuff. If you were on Twitter, Ryan Higgins Ryan, you can give me a follow. Brock is Brock Sager. Toby is Toby XI. And I'm holding him to being on next week. Charlie is Insanity and Chaos. Kevin is that Kevin Sharp. The store is Comics Con Store. Lane is... What do you CC Bags and Boards? Was that you? Like, you're not doing Twitter anymore, are you?
Yeah, I only use Twitter to listen to what read. I don't post.
Okay. So you're a lurker.
Yeah.
You're you split Adam Fitch's Mitt Romney fan 79 account, which is his Adam Fitch's Twitter handle.
Mitt Romney
Geekbox
fan.
Talk crossover.
What
It's
the fuck?
it's a joke. It's a long. It's a joke from like a couple years back that we keep bringing up. So,
Are you still doing the burn notice great rating scale?
Oh, dude. When you're a spy, fucking dude, love Burn Notice, man. You kidding me? Ah, shit. I should rewatch Burn Notice. Burn Notice is so good.
What was the name of the scale?
When you're a spy. The Gabrielle Anwar
scale.
We have decided to retire the Gabrielle Anwar scale multiple years ago because it is mean and sexist, and we don't want to be canceled. So, although technically, Karen came up with this, so
yeah, she came up with
I'll
it.
allow it.
Like, what?
So I'll allow it. Was that Karen? Didn't come up?
It was Ryan Scott.
Was it Ryan? I kind of think it was Karen that came up with that. Anyway,
Karen's gonna criticize a woman's body like that.
It's 2022. We are going to, we've grown. It was decades ago. It was wrong at the time. We knew better now. So we retire the Gabrielle.
What's the new Geekbox scale?
Good callback. We don't have one. How much does Justin hate recording the Geekbox? That's the new scale. And the scale goes from 10 to 20. Like, it doesn't even start at 1. It starts at 10. Yeah. And don't forget Manga Nations, our good friends over there. You can this is manga and anime. Okay, thank you all very much. We'll be back next week to talk about Sandman and whatever the hell else happens the next week. Because apparently every single week is just endless fucking comic book news now. Oh yeah, like 3 more comic companies are like going out of business. We'll talk about that next week.